Hey, welcome back to Vice Grip Garage. Today, Jessica and I are going to tear out the big block Chevrolet in Independence. It's hurt. It's got something going on. We're going to get it out and probably pull a head off, see if we can figure out what's going on. And then we got to come up with a game plan, get this thing back together in the next 13 days for Cletus and Cars in Florida. So Jessica and I talked it over and we've come up with a game plan, if you will. I think we're going to take the whole front clip off, and that's for a couple reasons. Last time we put it in without the front clip and it seemed to go pretty smooth, but this thing is absolutely shoehorned in here. And I think I've got a collapsed motor mount already. You can see the headers are hitting the steering shaft. The valve cover is rubbing against the heater core block off plate. The dizzy is really close. I mean, it's just all jammed in here. I've got power steering issues I got to resolve. So I want to get as much room in here as I can, maybe even just stand or sit up here to figure this out, because that's what caused the whole catastrophe, is that PS pump-a-lator. And the other issue is I have none tools currently. I've been traveling so much doing revivals and stuff like that, that we're still living out of boxes. And I gave most of my tools away. I have like 2 Pittsburgh sets, and that's pretty much it. So we're really limited. We don't have a leveler for our engine hoist or chains or anything. So bringing this out of the front and not having to lift it over the front firewall or rad support is probably going to be key. But I've got Jessica in here today helping me out. We're going to take the hood off together quick, and then we'll probably just each grab a side, get the fenders off, and then we can get this front part off here. And remember, I've got to redo the whole fuel system, catch can system, all of that as well. And how many days do we have?
12.
We have 12.
We're leaving in 12 days.
Leaving in 12 days, which means this needs to come out and get fixed or replaced, dyno tuned, new fuel system and electrical, and have it loaded in 12 days. I like how I always wait until the last minute. Plus, I'm flying out today to go to SEMA, actually, so we have more like 9 days.
Yeah, because you're going to be gone for a few days, so
that's
fine.
That's fine. Well, the nice thing is 7/16, ½ inch, 9/16, 5/8. You can take this whole entire car apart. So, ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Kind of gonna set up a makeshift tool area over here. Parts. Jessica's moving that all the way. Pull the clutch in.
You hear it though? It sounds super fun.
Well, that's the big compression. Oh no. Oh, that's gonna take forever to fix. This is the Pittsburgh Master kit. I don't know. It's got screwdrivers and stuff in it, but this is pretty much what we're gonna be working with today. Well, we're about 30 minutes in. You think we're making progress?
A little bit.
Kind of a little bit slow going because there's like zip ties and, you know, it's all kind of been cobbled together on account of all the rust and stuff. But hard part is done, I think, essentially. Now it's just finish draining the raginator, and then body mount bolts. This whole front clip will come off. And I think what we'll do this time is we'll unhook the electric at the bulkhead right here, and then we could just take all of this and swing it up and leave it on this, and then same with the vacuum pump.
Oh, smart. And then it's not
All of that. Yeah, and then that way we don't have to come back and
put it back together.
yeah, plug everything up front. These could probably stay. I don't see any reason. Well, or maybe we, it's only 2 bolts there. Maybe we just pulled them off at the front, this thingy too. But slowly and surely. This is a Motion Raceworks catch can that hooks to the breathers there. I'll show you the moisture this catches. Look at that. It's about half full too. Actually, forgot to actually have some sort of plumbing. Jessica got the ice cube hoses off. I got all the fuel lines, the stuff out of the way. I think we can get this out of the way now, and then we can finally take off the front core support here. There we go. I think I'm gonna set that back here. Here's some more evidence that the motor mounts have changed. It's really getting crushed in there. And then on this side again, like I was saying earlier, it's laying on the steering rod there. So we're gonna have to figure that out as well. But now, get the power steering reservoir off, and we'll get this off quick. Got the lightning whirler out, lightning hoses. Jessica got the throttle body off. Started pulling the injectors, and these look pretty clean over here on the tops. And then this side is looking really cruddy for some reason. And the guy started thinking, I'm gonna label these, number them up per cylindre, and I'm gonna have these flow tested and see if maybe this injector hung up on us. Just waiting for a minute. Jessica's running in the house to grab a marker and get these labeled up, and then we could start pulling back all the digital stuff. That's really fun, you know. There's only a couple wires, looks like. Then we can move on to disassembling the power steering, get the boom boom tubes off, pull the mounts, and then we're ready to snip this thing out here pretty quick. Obviously we gotta do the cross member bolt, stuff like that, drop the drive shaft, but that's super easy, only takes like 5 minutes. So, and then it'll be a lot easier to slip this back in with the transmission already bolted to it, because as you can see, it is just really tight. Getting to those bell housing bolts, not fun. Plus we've got that super ballistic anti-missile diaper bag wrapped around the transmission as well. And those buckles come up here to some of these bell housing bolts, and that was a nightmare trying to get that on after the fact. So this thing really did get dirty pretty quick. There's a bunch of belt wrapped around the pulleys in here, and we've been finding just chunks of belt laying everywhere in here like that. Mufflers are off. I'm going to pop this bolt out. Jessica's taking the drive shaft off back here.
I'm trying.
And I'm going to start unclipping the 48,912 zip ties, because I got to redo this fuel system anyway. So all this is going to need to be redone. The Hoosiers fit nicely on there. That's a good thing. Forgot we put air shocks on this, even though the springs are completely, actually that one is fully collapsed now.
Oh gosh.
So that's gonna have to be addressed. That's how it should look.
Hey, you want to use your muscles and push that for me?
This one right here?
Yeah.
Well, what in the devil?
I'm glad it's not just me.
Looks like Halloween in here. Anywho's, here's a motor mount that's normal. There's steel in here, and then it's got this rubber pad, of course, you guys know that. Here is one that's, well, it's absolutely destroyed. So basically the horse torques of the engine from this rotating has completely just ripped this apart and separated it. and when it's relaxed, it's collapsed. So confirmed, we got to do something with that, and that's why this is sitting on the steering shaft and everything's kind of kitty wampus in here right now. Starter's out, so that's good. Got some more digital wiring undone. I have no idea where it goes back. And some stuff back here unplugged, basically down to headers. And then we're gonna grab onto this thing and pull her out. By the way, recycling these old lights was a really good idea. A guy can actually see what is going on for the first time in a long time. Took the pulley off, look at the belts. That was stuck in between the two. It's pretty wild. Man, that thing got messed up pretty good. Here's some more fan wiring wrapped around that. But there's the gap. That's what caused the issue. Power steering pulley walked out, back belt came off, and just catastrophe. Bring a broom. We got a mess. In order to get the captain side header out, because this was so squished up, had to leave this side in, jack up on this side till I can get some separation with that floppy thing, and finally got this out, but it was really jammed in there. This and this, you know, we massaged that in with Tanya Harding, but all these other dents and stuff, that's from just it getting squished in there. And I almost had to take the oil pressure sending unit out and also the oil filter tray, but I was able to just barely sneak it out of there. So now we'll pull the pan on this, drain out a bunch of juice, probably wrap a trash bag around the output shaft, lower this back down and get her out. Nice pink juice coming out of there. That's great news. Oh yeah, perfect condition. Minus all the dirt I dropped in it. This is basically the bottom of the transmission pan. And no sparklies, very, very, very minimal clutch material, which is pretty amazing actually for a not only a new build, but you think about what this thing goes through. 5,000 to 6,000 RPM shifts and reverse and forward and you name it. Had a short life so far, but she ain't been an easy one. But all is well there, that's great. When we put her back in, I'll go ahead and put a new filter tray and all that stuff. I just got her drained for now. That way when we snip it out, she ain't pouring out of here. Well, this is interesting. I was taking the valve covers off so I don't scratch them on the brake booster or the whatever delete box thing. These are the Ultra Golds. We put it in and everything. I already looked at this before when we were trying to see what was going on with number 6 over here. Looked fine over here. I never pulled this side because we knew that number 5 wasn't firing, but if you remember, I don't know where it is, the sparkulator wire down there was laying on the header and melted off. And I just assumed that was the reason why. Look at this. It actually snapped the pushrod guide right off, and that's nowhere to be seen. I'm assuming it's down there. Rocker is still on here, and it's operating the valve. It's just obviously not operating it correctly. Luckily, we caught this in time. I think that rocker arm is salvageable, but that's pretty interesting and don't know why. It might be time to put stud girdle on here. These studs can start flexing and moving, and if you put a girdle in here, it ties everything in and just makes this nice and solid, but it adds a lot of height. You have to run taller valve covers. Well, I didn't at the time because we would have to do some other reconfiguration here potentially. I'm not sure if these valve covers are tall enough. They might be designed for that. Boy, there's a lot of moisture in there. A lot of moisture. So we found that already. I think we definitely need to pull the heads off of this. Look for bent valves, bent push rods, see what else we can find. Well, it is officially out. It's probably a good opportunity to take this car outside and clean this cross member up, wash it and stuff like that, and get it ready for something to come back in here. Also, probably a good time to be running these fuel lines, but I don't know if I want to get into that right now. I think most importantly, guy's got to have an engine, right? So let's pop these heads off, see what we got going on. I'm gonna take note of this, number 6 exhaust valve. Poly lock has moved. So it's either on this end or she's down there on the torque twister. But that is an issue and definitely a cause. So once we get this head off, we'll be able to flip it over and see right away if we've got a bent valve, or we could have smoked a lifter or a cam lobe. Well, so far it definitely has a bent exhaust valve. Pretty easy to tell. You can watch and listen. Here, oh, it's a nice crisp, snappy return. And then this one, stuck. It barely moves, but there's no return on it. And that was that space between the rocker and the valve stem there. So we'll keep on going. But so far, definitely a bent valve. Something kind of interesting here is the broke guide. I thought for sure I'd find it laying right in here, because if it broke, it's going to come through here, which lands it right here, and it is nowhere to be seen, which means unfortunately it clicky clanked its way past the camshaft, and now that's sitting down on the pan. I mean, we know where it's at, but hard to say if it did any damage on the way down. Initially, this cam lobe looks fine and the lifter looks fine. But now, let's get this off and see if we made contact or what happened. You know, we only over revved it by like 1,000 RPM. That's, you know, that's fine. Okay, here we go. Whoa, she came right off. Well, it's a double-edged, bittersweet, silver-lined serving knife is what we got here, gentlemen. It's always kind of nice to know an engine that you put together didn't fail physically because of how you built it. In this case, it was because of my size 13 foot through the firewall. I'm pretty positive. We've got a bent valve, schmuckered up a piston, and we were having some RPM cut issues. It was like a boost cut or something, and we were kind of struggling to figure it out, and that ended up being an MSD box fighting the Holley. Well, we switched to the Hyperspark and cured that, but I don't think I ever put the rev limiter back on. And if you watch the video on Indy, I tapped 6,500 RPM way too many times that I should have, and also at 240 degrees. The Felpro's head gasket's held in great, but there you go. Bent valve. You can see where it was making contact. Boy, this could have been a lot worse. Big groove there. But the valve bent in such a manner that it stayed out of the way, thankfully. It didn't cause catastrophic failure. And luckily, I hadn't run it since. I parked it. I ran it for a couple minutes, moving it around here or there, but that was really it. But I also have this valve, and this is going to be a valve seat issue. If you remember, I had all these seats redone. I had the installed height matched to this camshaft, and these reworked by a little local small shop. Well, this valve isn't seating correctly. Fuel is washing it and going right by this valve. So that also needs to be addressed. We've got gobs of compression on all of this here. So that's good, but I still need to replace that piston. And if I'm doing that, might as well put a roll of bearings in it. If I'm doing that, might as well put rings in it. So unfortunately, I think we're looking at a full rebuild. This is that piston that matches that valve over there. You can see the same fuel. It's just getting overloaded with fuel, not burning. That valve isn't seating. This piston here has just the slightest indication of, well, melting, basically. When it looks like the surface of the moon, that's going to be just from running a little bit lean. The reason these are so different is I started wiping them down to see if any others looked like this, but that's the only one. So when we flow test the injectors, we're going to take a look at that. It's extremely doubtful these heads are going to get done in the next 5-7 business days, something like that. That ain't going to happen. Also, is now the time to sell a couple rigs and pick up some aluminum heads? I don't know. They're getting cheaper. Maybe we do that, and maybe we put a forged crank in it. I'm not sure. I am going to call up my friends over at Blueprint Engines just as a plan B. And I'm going to head into the office and start seeing what kind of parts I can get and how quickly. I also have some other big block old parts laying around. Maybe we can cobble something together. But if you guys got any ideas, let me know. Bloop them down below. Now you guys be sure to stay tuned, because one way or another, this car has to be back together running down in Florida for Cletus of Cars at the Freedom Factory. You guys can actually come out and watch live. So whether it's this engine rebuilt or I find something else, I gotta have this thing together. Thanks guys for watching. Appreciate it very much. We'll see you next time.